With the world watching, what does it mean? I thought, well, you really need to go to Dostoevsky, because at some point this is all about the struggles of humanity. This means, but I was a journalist and I had a deadline that afternoon, so what it actually means is this is what was always there. We've just seen break out into highly visible public view with blood in the streets what the people of China have been living with for, at that point, 2 generations. And in fact, it's one of the odd things with statistics. If you look at the best estimates of the number of people who died on that night that the world remembers, they're utterly dwarfed by the number of people who died in China, their names never reported, their deaths never witnessed, nothing ever seen, but by way of the same-state violence that the world had finally seen when those soldiers came in with their guns and armored personnel carriers and tanks, and people died in front of the CNN cameras. And this is one piece of what the statistics don't quite sum up. And the question that we all struggle with, because it's very hard to actually quantify, and it resides more in the realm of ideas. What is a good society? The things that the previous panel was discussing. What is it that actually makes a difference in the way that people live? People remember Tiananmen, not really for the number killed. Burma had seen far, far more people gunned down the previous year rising up to demand freedom in their country. Nobody really made that much of it. But this was fraught with meaning because that was the showdown was going on between communism and the free world, and in China, in this huge state, this incredible thing had happened. And people were calling something in the street over and over that I have remembered to this day. I have over my desk a sign in Arabic, actually, which I picked up in the streets of Beirut during their demonstrations in 2005. It says, "The truth." This is what people call for over and over when they rise up in one of these rebellions where it's covered in the news, state violence. It's what you just heard about Venezuela. The truth. Please tell the truth. Please tell the truth. Because what goes on in places where there is tremendous, I would say, seen and unseen violence are 2 kinds that we deal with. Implied violence. Violence where people die quietly in a gulag instead of in front of the cameras is the need to somehow tell the truth about what's really going on. I want to give in a sense, part of what you try to discern is, are you seeing escalating violence, or are you seeing escalating resistance? I promised my nephew Max Rosette over there a hat tip for that phrase. We were talking about it last night. I want to tell you, the next generation is here and there's great promise ahead. That is part of the difficulty that any journalist faces in trying to figure things out. It's part of the difficulty that anyone reading journalism faces in trying to figure what kind of journalism am I reading. And I stand in front of you as one of a really privileged class of journalists. I have an American passport. I come home to a place where I think there are great political troubles going on right now. But I have really never had to worry about being thrown in jail at home for the things I write. I may have to worry about lawsuits at some point, in trying to assess what's going on or do something about it in the world, there is another story I'd like to tell you about journalism, and that is sort of the choices that get made. Back in 1990, this was a little after Tiananmen, I got to go on a spoondoggle trip to a conference in Washington about women journalists. And they had summoned all these people, all these women from all over the world who were working in journalism. And the preoccupation of the hour I found when I got there was, were women getting enough bylines and enough front page stories, and were they getting paid as much as men? And I sat there because fresh in my mind was still what I had witnessed in China, which was just worlds removed. And next to me was sitting a woman from, as they were calling it at the time still, Leningrad, a Russian reporter, actually a Soviet reporter still. And she sat through these debates over bylines for women on page 1. And then she kind of leaned over to me and whispered, she said, "I have a problem. Maybe you can help me." So what's your problem? She said, "I've been working as a journalist in," she called it St. Petersburg, in Leningrad for some time. And we have been trying for years, at great risk, to bring to the fore these reformers that we see, people who we think can change things. And they're beginning to get power. They're getting into positions where they can do something. The trouble is we're discovering that they are just as corrupt as the people that they are replacing. And we don't know what to do. Do we write about this? Do we not? I thought about that, and I realized I didn't actually have an answer. The answer I had was, you're the one who has to assess that. The truth is important, but you also have to weigh the risks that you will be taking. If you expose that, the thing is, that my advice was, do not try to protect the people you are talking about, but do consider your own position in all this. And where we finally left it was, she said, by the way, you know a good place where I can get a haircut while I'm in Washington. Yeah, why don't we go do that? These are some of the dilemmas.